My name is Daniel Mercer, and this is the story of how everything was taken from me. I remember the exact sound. Not the sound of the judge's gavel, not the whisper of papers sliding across polished wood, not even the words that sealed my fate. No, what I remember most is the laughter. It started quietly, just a muffled chuckle from somewhere behind me, then another, then more. By the time the judge finished speaking, the room was full of it. Not loud, not chaotic, just controlled, cruel amusement. The kind people use when they believe justice has been served, when they think the man standing in front of them deserves to lose everything. And I did lose everything. My company, my house, my reputation, my future, even my wife. I stood there in that courtroom in downtown Chicago, staring at the people who had once shaken my hand, smiled at me, toasted to my success, and now they were laughing as I fell apart. I didn't cry, not then. I just stood there, numb, as the judge declared me liable for fraud I didn't commit, and ordered damages that would strip me down to nothing. My business accounts were frozen before I even walked out of the building. By sunset, my name was already circulating online, with headlines that painted me as a greedy liar who cheated investors and destroyed lives. Daniel Mercer, another corporate fraud. They didn't know the truth, but they didn't care. And the worst part? The people responsible for it all were sitting right there in the courtroom, smiling. Evan Cole, my business partner, my best friend of 12 years, and sitting next to him, holding his hand like she'd always belonged there, Lila, my wife. I didn't understand it yet, not fully. My mind couldn't process how everything had unraveled so quickly. One moment I was running a thriving logistics firm with contracts across 3 states, and the next I was standing in court being dismantled piece by piece. But I would understand, eventually, and when I did, I stopped being the man they thought they knew. The first night after the trial, I slept in my car, a black sedan I'd almost lost as well, parked under a flickering streetlight on the edge of a quiet suburban neighborhood. The house I used to call home was only 6 miles away, but it wasn't mine anymore. Lila had changed the locks the same day the verdict came down. Efficient, cold, final. I called her once. She didn't answer. I didn't leave a message. Instead, I sat there in the dark, gripping the steering wheel, replaying every moment of the past year, every deal, every document, every late night Evan and I spent going over numbers, planning expansions, celebrating wins. Somewhere in there, something had gone wrong, or someone had made it go wrong. I didn't sleep much that night, or the next, or the next. For the first week, I moved like a ghost. I stayed in cheap motels, paid in cash from the little money I still had access to. I avoided people, avoided mirrors, avoided anything that reminded me of the man I used to be. But eventually, the numbness started to crack, and beneath it, something else began to form. Questions, simple ones at first. Why did the evidence look so clean? Too clean. Why were the fraudulent transactions traced directly to my login credentials, but only during times I clearly remembered not being in the office? Why did Evan testify against me so smoothly, like he'd rehearsed every word? And why, most of all, did Lila never once look surprised? That was the one that stayed with me. Not angry, not heartbroken, not even confused, just calm, like she'd known all along how it would end. That's when I stopped asking questions out loud and started looking for answers quietly. I knew I couldn't fight this head on. Not yet. To the world, I was already guilty. If I tried to push back without proof, I'd just look desperate, pathetic, exactly what they expected. So I disappeared. Not completely, just enough. I took a job under a different name, night shifts at a warehouse on the outskirts of the city. It was the kind of place no one paid attention to, no one asked questions. Boxes came in, boxes went out, and the people in between were invisible. Perfect. During the day, I started rebuilding. Not my life, my case. I tracked down everything I could access. Old emails, backup files, archived contracts. I spent hours in public libraries, digging through digital records, piecing together timelines, and slowly the cracks began to show. The first break came from something small, a timestamp. One of the transactions used against me, one of the key pieces of evidence, was logged at 2:14 a.m. on a Tuesday. According to the prosecution, I had accessed the system remotely and authorized a transfer that later disappeared into offshore accounts. But at 2:14 a.m. that Tuesday, I was in a hospital waiting room. My father had been admitted that night. There were records, security footage, witnesses. I hadn't even touched a computer. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Then I realized something worse. It wasn't a mistake. It was a setup. Once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. I went back through every transaction, every login, every flagged anomaly. They all had something in common. They were timed perfectly. Moments when I had no alibi, or moments when my alibi could easily be ignored. Whoever did this didn't just frame me, they studied me. They knew my schedule, my habits, my blind spots. There were only two people who knew me that well, Evan and Lila. The realization didn't hit like a punch. It was slower than that, colder, like ice spreading through my chest. For weeks, I said nothing. I kept working, kept digging, kept collecting pieces. I learned how to stay patient, how to wait, how to let the truth come to me instead of chasing it blindly. And the more I found, the clearer the picture became. Evan had been siphoning money for a year, small amounts at first, barely noticeable, then bigger, bolder. But he didn't just take it. He rerouted it through accounts tied to my credentials. Every move he made it look like me. And Lila? She wasn't just aware of it. She was helping him. I found emails between them. Not romantic at first, just strategic. Discussions about timing, about access, about how to make certain approvals look routine. But as the months went on, the tone changed. Warmer, more personal. By the time the trial happened, they weren't hiding it anymore. They didn't need to. I had already been buried. That's when the anger finally came. Not explosive, not wild, controlled, focused. They didn't just steal my money, they stole my life, and they laughed while they did it. So I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront them. I wasn't going to beg for my life back. I was going to take something from them instead. Everything. The plan didn't come together overnight. It took months. I needed more than truth. I needed proof that couldn't be ignored. Something undeniable. Something public. I started with Evan. He'd grown the company after I was gone, rebranded it, shifted the narrative, turned my downfall into his success story. Investors trusted him now. He was the man who cleaned up the mess. But people like Evan, they don't stop. They escalate. I knew he was still moving money, so I followed it, carefully, quietly, and eventually I found it. A new set of accounts, offshore, hidden behind layers of shell companies. Same pattern, same method, same arrogance. He thought he was untouchable. That was his mistake. I didn't report it, not yet. Instead, I documented everything. Every transaction, every connection, every detail. Then I moved to Lila. She'd stayed with him. Of course she did. They were building something together now. Something built on everything they took from me. But Lila had a weakness Evan didn't. She needed control. I watched her routines, her habits, the places she went when she thought no one was paying attention. And eventually, I found the one thing she couldn't hide. She'd been moving money too. Not as carefully, not as cleanly. Personal accounts, luxury purchases, transfers that didn't match her declared income. Greed makes people sloppy. I let it all build. For almost a year, I said nothing. I just collected, waited, watched, until the day came when everything aligned. Evan was preparing for a major investor presentation, a big one. New funding, expansion, media coverage, the kind of moment that defines a career. And Lila? She was right there beside him, just like in the courtroom, smiling, confident, certain that the past was buried. That's when I made my move. Not in private, not quietly, publicly. I sent everything. To the investors, to the media, to the authorities. Every document, every record, every piece of proof I had spent a year gathering. I didn't include my name. I didn't need to. The evidence spoke for itself. At first, there was confusion, then doubt, then panic. The presentation was canceled. The investors pulled back, and within 48 hours, the story broke. Not about me, about them. Fraud, embezzlement, financial manipulation. The same words they used to destroy me now attached to their names. I watched it unfold from a small apartment across the city, on a secondhand TV, in silence. There was no laughter this time, just shock, disbelief, and then consequences. Evan was arrested first. Lila followed 2 days later. The trial that came after was different from mine. There were no gaps, no convenient assumptions, no missing pieces, just facts. Cold, clear, unavoidable. I attended one day, sat in the back, unseen, unnoticed, and when the verdict came down, I heard it again. That sound, but this time it wasn't laughter. It was silence. Heavy, crushing, final. Evan looked broken. Lila looked terrified. And for the first time since that day in the courtroom, I felt something shift inside me. Not joy, not relief, something deeper. Balance. I stood up before the sentencing ended, walked out into the bright afternoon light. No one stopped me. No one recognized me. To the world, Daniel Mercer was still the man who lost everything. And maybe that was fine, because I knew the truth. I didn't get my old life back. I didn't get my reputation restored overnight. But I got something else, something better. I made them face what they did. I made them live it. And as I walked away from that courthouse, I realized something I hadn't understood before. They laughed when I lost everything. But in the end, I was the last one who knew how this story would end, and I made sure they never laughed again.